5. No, that's right. Wrong time zone. So we are live streaming currently.
This conference will now be recorded.
He was going to be. I don't see him yet.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, who said that?
That was me.
Me who? Brandon, hi. Your no, your name nor your
It
face.
says City of DeSoto.
Oh, it just says City of DeSoto. Okay. There we go. There you are. Real good. Gotcha. It works.
Clock's on Mountain Time.
So am I.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, I'm on Eastern.
So you tell them to cancel all the flights for tomorrow?
Nothing going to Denver tonight.
Yeah.
As long as you don't fly Southwest or Delta.
How's that? I don't know. I don't know who's
I
flying.
don't know about that.
Is it supposed to be storming? Is that what's I haven't checked the weather.
We're just trying to give you a hard time, Brandon. Don't worry. We're good.
I'm looking forward to it. I get to see my nieces and nephews. I'm going to see them back on. So
All right.
my sister wanted to do it.
Hi, Rob. I can see you're on. Can you hear us okay?
Yep. You hear me?
Yep, sure can. Thank you.
have 7 o'clock. Let's call the September 1st DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Here.
Ritter,
Here.
Daniels, Lane,
Here.
Hanemacher.
Here.
All are present.
Okay, I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight, first on our agenda, we have a public hearing for our revenue neutral rates. Mike, you want to introduce anything on that?
Yeah, I can introduce Brandon.
Oh,
who
yeah,
I think was
cool.
going to give a quick summary, if I'm not mistaken.
Pardon me, Brandon.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, you're good. The revenue situation is now part of the process. So as of the pressure, social is tax rate bills generate the same property tax dollars. Current year tax in our case, the rate is 19.9%. 2022 budget had one rate of 22.1. The 2023 proposed school-wide rate is 12.8 mils, reduction of 12.16 mils. Since the reserve levy is higher than the revenue neutral rate, the city must hold a revenue neutral rate hearing to pass resolution. This particular item is a public hearing. I recommend that the mayor and council hold a public hearing, receive comments, close the public hearing. I also recommend that the city council adopt resolution 1083.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions for Brandon before I open the public hearing? Oh, hearing none, I will officially open the public hearing for the revenue neutral rate. Anyone wish to address the council on the revenue neutral tax rate?
I would.
Please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name's Albert Lightwine, 8473 Timber Trail Drive, DeSoto, Kansas. So, I really don't understand all this, but what I do understand is my property taxes keep skyrocketing. So, all these people listed here have got to be getting a windfall of money. I mean, mine just went up $500 this year, over $500. Everybody I've talked to in my neighborhood went over $500. So we just retired. So I can't go to Social Security and say, hey, I mean, they did give me a raise last year, but they also raised my Medicare. So it was pretty much nothing. So, I mean, if we continue like this, you're gonna tax retired people out of the city. I mean, we have to live in our budget. I think everybody else should do the same. So, I mean, this is ridiculous, how much that's going on. So what's it gonna do next year? I mean, with the new thing coming out here, it's even gonna be worse. So are we gonna try to even out these taxes, or are we just gonna keep taking the windfall, or what's gonna happen here?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had to not do some stuff we wanted to do because of budget between fuel and everything else, and the price of everything. So I think the cities and the county and the school district should do the same. So instead of just keep raising our property values, I mean, it's crazy.
I appreciate your comments. This won't be a back, we'll speak later, but, so I'm not, just personally, I'm not ignoring you intentionally, I just.
So what's the subdivision assessment mean? What's that?
Yeah, probably on your tax bill, there probably is a special assessment from some storm sewer improvements that we
Now
put
that
in.
we already done with through all
We're
that.
done with
so.
that. I'd have to have a look at your tax bill to explain
Okay,
that.
so
I could
this is what the
try.
county sent me, and I don't understand. I've tried to get it explained. This right here, so what's all that mean right there? So they doing it by subdivisions, or? I mean, I guess that's part of it. I mean,
Yeah,
I talked
Right.
to somebody here at the city, and the guy was really nice, but still don't understand it. I mean,
yeah,
what it
I
all
can't,
means.
I I'd like to get back to you. I suspect that this term subdivision doesn't mean your neighborhood. It means the particular area of taxing and its overlapping jurisdictional tax that represents your total tax bill. The total assessed valuation, 13.5 million. Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that.
I mean, the only people kept their budget intact, and there's actually less, is the people in the cemeteries, so thank them anyway, so it actually went down.
Let me take a photo of
Sure.
this and then I can get back.
It's nothing
Okay.
private, so.
All right, I'll let Mike finish his photograph, and then if you're done with your comments, I
Aye.
will ask if anyone else has a comment they would like to make. Any other comments on the revenue neutral tax rate? So again, our formal action on this will be under the regular agenda under item 4A, so it'll be coming up shortly when you'll hear our discussion of the item. Seeing no one else, is there anyone online, Mike, that might wish to comment?
Yeah, there's one person online, and I'll just extend the invitation. If you wish to comment on the revenue neutral tax rate, unmute yourself and do so now. I'm seeing a head shake, so it doesn't appear like there's anybody online.
Okay. I will officially close the hearing on the revenue neutral tax rate. The next hearing item we have is our 2023 budget. Mr. Lightwine, I would assume your comments would pertain to the 2023 budget as well as the revenue neutral rate.
Yes.
Do you want to, well, when I open the hearing, do you want to restate your comments, or can I?
If I need to, I can.
Okay. I'm going to officially open the hearing.
Okay.
And I invite you to the mic. If maybe you could just say, for the record, that the recording secretary might just bring your comments forward from the previous item to reflect they apply to this item as well.
Okay, so, yeah, on the 2023 budget, what I mentioned before is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We need to be towards that. I mean, we need to keep the budget intact. I mean, as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else on the 2023 budget? All right, seeing none, I will close that hearing. And we will, so that will be item 4B in our regular agenda coming up. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. Tonight, items on the consent agenda are acted on under one motion. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the council minutes from the meeting of August 18th, approval of pay ordinance number 933, accept a deed of dedication for road right-of-way from Intervet, and accept a quitclaim deed from DVP LLC for Arbor Ridge Sewer Pump Station land. Anyone have any item on the consent agenda they would like to remove and discuss further? Or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Murdock,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Our next item is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Mr. Mayor, before I do, can I
Certainly.
pass these pictures
Yes.
up to the,
Yeah, by all means.
so that they have an idea of what I'm talking about? My name is Charles Lawhead. I live at 31760 West 83rd Street, DeSoto, Kansas. My property sits adjacent to a road that the city has an easement to maintain to get back to the old water treatment plant. Recently, and I have 4 grandchildren that live with me, 2 of them are small, and they ride the bicycle up and down this road. All of a sudden, this concrete with rebar has been dumped, and you can see how close it is to the road. It's a hazard to my grandkids, but also with the subdivision across the street from us, I've got people walking down there, so that makes me liable for something that I have no responsibility for. I did not put it there, was not asked if it could be put there. Now, I understand the city has a right to protect the road from erosion, but they don't have a right to jeopardize my safety, my family's safety, or my future.
Okay, seeing the rebar, I would agree with your comments. That's not an appropriate application of concrete rubble with rebar sticking out. Mike, can you?
Agree. Yeah, agree. I have been aware of the bank stabilization problem that we've been trying to fix. This is the first I'm seeing these pictures, and I agree with you.
It just happened.
Okay.
This is the first council meeting since it happened. Trust me, I didn't settle it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll get this addressed. This shouldn't be in this condition. I agree.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Charles.
Thank you for your attention.
Yep.
Anyone else under call to public? All right, we'll move on. Item 3 is old business, of which we have none, so we can go to item 4A. Consider Resolution 1083, exceeding revenue neutral tax rate. So, Brandon, you did the introduction. Anything further on this item?
The only thing I would mention there, council, is that the project facility is there, notices that everybody is on the our attorney August that kind of notified that public hearing and to detective see revenue neutral rate. Outside of that,
Okay. All right. I don't see anybody that needs a question. I'm going to just first try to address Mr. Lightwine's comments or concerns about our budget and why we are would choose to exceed the revenue neutral rate this year. For reference, your city taxes represent, I think, about 15% of your tax bill. So we swing a small part of that, but it is an important part nonetheless. And over the past 5 years, our while property values have increased probably 30 to 35%, our mill rate has also decreased about 35%. In fact, last year, my city taxes actually went down a small amount on the bill, but I think I paid $20 less in city taxes last year than I did the year before. And it should have been pretty consistent across the city because we actually maintained a revenue neutral rate last year. We did not raise any additional more funds in last year than we did the year before. So. But we are one small piece of the taxing entities that is part of your tax bill. So we all pay taxes, so we all feel that same pressure and pain. And the point of our budget this year is to we have pressures on our budget for fuel. Commodities, different items that are up in cost about 8% over the previous year. And we are, if my math is correct, we are about 4%. We are raising about 4% more money this year than we did last year. So we are not trying to keep raising enough to keep pace with the current rate of inflation. We are just raising our taxing enough to maintain the level of service that we believe that our citizens desire us to provide. That's my take on our taxes, and I would open it up to anyone on the council that would wish to comment on why we might are choosing to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
Well, yeah, there's probably not a whole lot more to say than what he's said. But, you know, unfortunately, the values of properties are going up, and I think that's where the big climb is. I mean, it's just not here, it's across Johnson County, everywhere that the property values go up. That's why our mill levy is, you know, able to go down. One comment about, you know, Panasonic or any development coming as far as making your taxes go higher, that's not going to be the case. The idea is as we get more business, commercial, other people, then the residential base will hopefully be able to continue to go down as we are doing it now. So we're not overspending, but unfortunately every project we have planned and have had planned in our CIP for the last how many years, and when it finally gets to that year where it works into our budget to be able to do it, now costs of everything have gone out of control and skyrocketed. And so then we fall into, do we not fix the roads? Do we not do what we've been doing? Or do we, you know, try to do what we can with the budget to make it work? So that's probably about all I have.
Yep, that's a good point. I didn't, go ahead, Rob, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob. I'll give you the floor.
I think that's about 2 seconds. I think it's also important to note what revenue neutral is. Because everybody seems to property taxes go up, it takes 17%. Understand that the city taxes don't go up, but we don't go up by that same amount percentage-wise. Revenue neutral rate is there to basically say we can utilize more than we did the previous year, and therefore we have to lower the mill levy too. And it has exactly, not understanding exactly this dollar to dollar that we got in the prior year. And so this hearing of this resolution simply to say we can collect a little bit more than we did last year, but it's not anywhere related to the percentage of which the property value is not. And that's what revenue neutral rate is trying to select that in where when revenues go up substantially, especially for those fixed income, they are hit as hard because the property is not going up in value that much since so that's probably important to understand as a continue to reiterate. The other thing that just referencing what Lauren mentioned is the development that's happening in Southwest Corridor and Panasonic or any other things are paid for from taxpayers' dollars or more expensive. But the tip is being paid for by the developers. And that means when we get to the point where the industry zone or Panasonic or handling the taxes and the franchisees that provides the ability to take the burden off the residents and the industry covers the tax expenses that are there, thus giving us the ability once the businesses are up and running to be able to go under the school district to provide for tax relief for our citizens as well.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Kevin, did you want to add anything?
No, I'd just be
Okay.
reiterating.
All right.
You know, I agree with all those points.
Okay. All right. If there is no further discussion, I would entertain a motion on the resolution. Certainly.
So you came in past the public hearing, Marcia, and so that's why, just in case you're wondering why you're not asked to talk, because the public hearing was at the very beginning of the meeting.
Okay, I was a few minutes.
So, anyway.
Did you have a comment on the revenue neutral rate that you wanted to make?
I have a question on it, because you just raised.
Would you go to the, we're somewhat informal. I will,
Well, hi, I'm Marcia.
Most of that one.
Most of you
and
know me.
State your name and address.
I just had a question because you just raised the city taxes, we just had a vote on it. And now you're raising these taxes, so that's my question.
Okay, so
What are we doing here?
the sales tax was a renewal, and that sales tax,
Yes.
is a tax, the sales tax originally started in 2002,
Yeah.
something like that.
O2, yep.
By that council, that governing body then, it's those monies that are generated through the sales tax go to our debt service fund, and that is to fund capital improvement projects. So I guess I would,
Such as, what would that be?
projects that we've done over the years,
Have we done any?
Roads,
Yeah.
91st Street Road, 91st Street.
That's it?
Oh, well, no, we could keep going on and on. If
Well-
we can get you a list of all the capital improvements that we've done. I mean, it's
we do,
quite lengthy.
$500,000 worth of projects every year, repairing streets or replacing, and then we do a more extensive project every few years. A mill and overlay of Kill Creek, like one of the early ones that when I first came on council, we spent several $1 million overlaying Kill Creek, or old 83rd Street from the east city limits all the way to Kill Creek Road.
So what is this new tax that we're gonna increase, it's gonna
The,
take care of?
the money we're talking about now is the money that funds our general fund. So it pays for salaries for our people, it pays for fuel for the trucks that push the snow, it pays for the maintenance on the trucks that push the snow, it pays for folks that work at the swimming pool because the pool is a recreation, so it doesn't fully fund itself, it pays for a lot of the parks programs, it pays for everything we do that's outside of, we do a lot of things that are not street improvements or public works projects. There are a lot of fun, we have 35 full-time employees
I
that
guess
we.
I'm not seeing much of what you guys are doing is what I'm thinking. I'm seeing taxes go up, I'm on a steady income, I don't get increases, and every time I look, it goes up, up, up. You get the new tax there, and I don't know what
That's not a
you're
new
doing.
tax, though, that was a
A
continuation.
renewal, yes, we put it out to vote. I
Right,
get
yeah,
it.
and it was overwhelmingly accepted by the vote, I mean, it was
Of
60.
course it was, why wouldn't they?
So Marcia, you see,
So,
the sheriff, and we have policing. You see sidewalks being built. You see the grass being mowed. All of these things are what the city budget. I mean, you can see an itemized line of
I've seen
everything.
I know, and I think there's places that you could cut and keep our taxes at the table.
That's fair.
okay, thank you for your comments, appreciate it.
I think I just would have one comment, and that's why I'm doing it, capital improvement as a sales tax, that actually does help. And some of the burden off of our taxpayers and put it on people that transit through our community as well as the people that live here, where it's spread across everybody that's using roads and doing construction for that.
Okay, thank you, Rob, for that comment. Now, hearing no more comments, I would entertain a motion, please.
First motion, I'd like to approve resolution 1083 to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 4B, adopt 2023 budget.
Yes, Council, I have about a 10-minute
Certainly.
graphical presentation if you want to
I think it'd
see
be
it.
important to share. We have a few
Yeah,
people in the
let me do
audience, so
that.
it'd be great.
Let me do that. Let's start the slideshow here. Yeah, so we've kind of talked around some of these topics here, and for the council's benefit, I did upload a new revised complete budget document, a PDF, to the Google Drive folder for this meeting, just this afternoon. It just has a few updates that weren't included in the one that went out in the packet. So we've been discussing the budget since May, throughout the summer, and none of this should be new information to you. We did a lot of the policy discussions, policy decisions sometime around June and July, after we had received the county's assessed valuation report. In general terms, the assessed valuation for the city went up significantly, more than 15%. So that means that a single mill levy would generate 15% more property tax than it did last year if we kept the same that same levy rate. So important to also note that for the general fund, so the city essentially there's three major funds that are supported by property tax. It's the general fund, the law enforcement, and the debt service fund. The water fund and the sewer fund are supported by utility revenues that are generated specifically by those, and they're standalone. So there's a kind of separate pots of money that we just want to make sure that those funds stand on their own. So the first sheet I have up here, there's a lot of numbers. I won't go through them all, but this kind of occurs at the start of our budget, and is a summary that really compares last year to this year. So last year, the total revenues in the general fund were $5.7 million. That's a current projection toward the end of this year. For the general fund, for the budget for next year, we're expecting that to increase to $6.3 million. Similarly, in the water fund, 2.1, sewer fund, 750. You can see the rest there. On the expense side, the expenses last year in the general fund, just over $6 million. For this year, it's 7.5, and about $1 million of that is a contingency allocation that we've discussed before. There's also a contingency revenue in the general fund of $1 million to account for unknown factors as we work through 2023 with the massive undertakings that are underway, bringing Panasonic and its spin-off development to the city. You can see the rest there. The water fund, 2.4 million, sewer fund, 0.8, and you can see the rest. Down here, we talk about the cash balances in each fund. Started healthy levels in 2023, will end 2023 at healthy levels, and I'll go through those in a little bit more detail as we go through the slides. Here's a chart of the assessed valuations from 2017 through 2023, and you can see total valuations are just on a steady incline. The 96 million to 107 million, that's the percentage difference that we talked about, 15, 16, 70%, somewhere in there. That's the total assessment for the entire town. So that's quite an increase from the previous year. We also project other revenue sources. So just in general terms, the property taxes generated by that property tax bill that you showed me, and the assessments levied on property tax represent about a third of the budget for the general fund. So general operations of the city included street maintenance, capital improvements, parks and recreation, all the functions that the city has. Another third is generated by sales tax. And so sales tax is something that we work hard to project accurately, because it has been increasing by double digits year over year for the past, really since, you can see the chart here, since about 2016, it's been on a very steady increase. We always want to project these conservatively. So what this graph shows, and the sales tax is broken down into four components. There's this stuff that's generated in the city, and then our share of what's generated in the county, and those are broken down into digital and brick and mortar, essentially. So those are the four lines at the bottom of the chart, and the line at the top of the chart is a combination of all of them. For 2020, this is an actual data point. For 2021, this is an actual data point. For 2022, this is what we project through the end of the year. Still double-digit increases. What's included in the 2023 budget is conservatively significantly less than what we're projecting this year. It's less than what we got last year. It's a little bit more than what we got the year before. This is kind of maintaining the philosophy of being conservatively low with revenue projections. So this is the sales tax projection. I think it's also important to note that none of the impacts, the expected revenue impacts from the Panasonic announcement are incorporated into this budget at all. We know there's going to be significant revenues from building permit fees, inspection fees, franchise utility revenues, most specifically electric revenues that will start to occur yet even this year and continue through 2023 as the construction starts and they start using power and they start generating that economic activity. We know those will occur. We did not include those in our projections for this revenue, for property tax revenue, or a lot of the other revenue streams. What we did instead was we put in the general fund a contingency revenue of $1 million. And we also put a contingency expenditure of $1 million in the general fund to account for the increase in service needs that we expect. Things like special inspections associated with the construction, road crews, additional road crews to handle traffic management, things like that. There's just a lot of stuff that cannot be foreseen at this time. A lot of revenues that are hard to project. So we made the decision after the announcement in July, because we were mostly done with the budget by then, that we're going to put those contingencies in there to allow us to be flexible with the needs going through next year. So that's the sales tax picture. The other revenues generate kind of the last third of the picture of the revenues for the general fund, and these include things like planning fees, rents and leases, court fees, recreation fees. All these kind of add up to this dotted line up top, and they've been much more stable, but still on a very positive incline, with the exception of COVID year, I think, is that dip there. But anyway, a gradual increase as we try to fit that best line of increases. This goes all the way back to 2007. So we talked about the mill levy, and this is a chart representing what the mayor indicated. Since 2007, our mill levy, 17, excuse me, has gone from 27 down to the projected 20.8. This is the 20.8 figure that that's in the 2023 budget. The revenue neutral rate is 19.947, so we slightly exceed the revenue neutral rate. But again, we're looking at an environment where commodities, contracting, those sorts of services, the consumer price index for the Midwest is 8.6% on an annual basis right now. So more than 8% inflation. And this, while we're not maintaining a level revenue position with this rate, we're only gaining back about half of the effect of inflation. So that'll be shown by year-ending fund balances, and I can explain that in a second. This chart gives general over total revenues for the general fund. There's a pretty significant increase here, but again, that includes the $1 million of contingency revenues that otherwise would not be in the picture. Otherwise, this would be somewhere pretty close to the 2022 level. Here is the projected year-ending fund balance for the general fund. So when we do our budget, we do not look at a single year. We don't look at 2 years. We project 5 years out. Going any further than 5 years out kind of diminishes in its value because it's hard to predict 5 years. And I think the position we're in with the Panasonic plant coming up, it's even more difficult to know what's going to happen 5 years out. So worth repeating again, these projections also really do not reflect the positive revenue impacts that we know are coming specifically from franchise revenues off Panasonic. That doesn't include that. We crafted these 5 year projections largely before the announcement. So this really doesn't show that. And of course on the expenditure side, it's more of a status quo projection. Yes, we've been growing, healthy growth in residents and activity, and so we expect those to continue to grow. This is really a status quo, kind of the same sort of projections that we've done for the last 5 or 10 years. But still, what you can see is general fund revenues at the actual year-ending fund balance on the general fund was $3.4 million at the end of 2021. We're projecting that to decrease to just over $3 million by 2022. The darker blue line shows the general fund year-end balance as a percentage of appropriations. That number is important because we have a fiscal policy that says that our target is 30% for that number. We want to keep an amount in the general fund at the end of the year equal to 30% of what it takes to operate the general fund throughout the year. And that was done with the consultation of our financial advisors several years ago, and that hasn't changed. So you can see that we're well above that. And largely, these amounts, the reason we're well above is because some of the ARPA, the COVID funding and the ARPA funding that we got in the general fund hasn't been spent yet. So you see we're spending that down over the next several years so that that year-ending fund balance moderates toward 30%, toward where our policy says it should be and where good fiscal responsibility says it should be. This chart shows the law enforcement fund. Law enforcement fund, we do not have a policy on a fund balance for that because there's not really a need. It's an in and an out completely. The important part to note on the law enforcement fund is the mill rate. Here, this red line is the mill levy. So the proposed mill levy for law enforcement in 23 reduces from 5.2 to 4.9 and it goes down to 4.8 in the out years. And you can see as long as this remains above zero, that fund's fine. Debt service fund, in addition, so you can see again, here's the year-ending fund balance. No need to keep really any reserve in the debt service fund. It's an in and out sort of scenario. So we're taking the mill levy from 4 down to 2.5 for the proposed 2023 budget, and then it decreases from that year on. This shows the water fund, similarly 5-year projections, similarly moderating toward 30%. 2023 revenues 2.1, expenditures 2.3. That's why this chart is going down between 2022 and 23. It's already on a downward projection. 4% rate increase is budgeted for this. That's an inflationary reaction. Before this year, our inflation has been 1%, 1.5, very low, and we've been lucky not to have to increase water rates. But this year, like I said, it's above 8%, and we're seeing that in the commodity and other expenses that it takes to run the water fund. So we're budgeting a 4% increase for next year. We'll evaluate that fund at the end of the year and make the decision in January exactly how that rate increase will be structured. We're also assuming an increase in the user base, just increase in usage. The number of users into the system is projected to increase by 4%. This is a similar chart on the water fund. Again, we are in the middle of a moderation in the fund balances, but it's still above the 30% by the end of the projection period. Similarly, we're projecting a 3% rate increase in the water fund, a 2% base user growth. So that's the story. That's the high-level story on the city budget. If the council is in agreement with that, we'll ask your signature, your motion to approve the budget, and we'll need to sign the certificate that I think the mayor has in front of him. And these are state budget forms that occur at the very end of our budget. This is what we'll submit to the county, both counties actually, Johnson and Leavenworth. So I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Okay. Questions for Mike? Comments? Okay. Are we ready to adopt the budget?
I'll make a motion, we adopt the 2023 budget as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Item 4C, consider bids for Ottawa Street project.
Yes, Council. Exciting project. We've been designing this for about a year. Reconstruction of Ottawa Street between Riverfest Park and 82nd Street from its current condition. 2-lane asphalt road with no sidewalks and ditch section road to a collector type standard with curb and gutter sidewalks on one side. We'll also be replacing a pretty significant drainage element that occurs just north of the railroad tracks there. in May, I believe, was the last time we talked about this project. Was it May? I think it was May when the design engineer CFS came and gave an update on the project. And at that time, he gave you an estimate of the construction cost at about 1.8 million. And that was significantly up from what we had budgeted in the CIP. So we knew that we were going to have to make some adjustments to the CIP funding and revenue streams and expenses in the out years at that time, and decided to go forward with the bidding of the project. So we took those bids last week. We got 5 good bids. The low bidder is McEnany Construction in the amount of $1,987,654.32. The bids were actually quite close. There were, like I said, 5 bidders. The low 3 were within a couple $100,000 of each other. So clear that the bids were competitive and reflected the current cost of the project, although that cost is about $200,000 higher than what we were expecting to see a couple of months ago. That is nothing new. That's a reflection of the current bidding environment. Labor materials costs are high. It's hard to get materials. Labor costs are high. So that did result in the higher bids. We are recommending to go ahead and award this project to the low bidder on the basis that the bids were competitive. They did reflect the honest market value of the work, and it's unlikely that we'll get lower bids in the future. So we're recommending to move forward with the bid from McEnany Construction. I've got in the staff report an overall total project cost sitting now at about $2.58 million. It's important to understand how that impacts our capital improvement plan. So Exhibit B shows the revenue side of the CIP, the 5-year CIP, and the expense side. On the revenue side, I'm recommending to increase our bond issue that we're anticipating to issue this fall. We had anticipated $1 million for this project. I just suggest that we increase that issue to 1.2 million. And then you can see here on the project cost, the second sheet is the expense side of the 5-year CIP. You can see the projects that we're planning. And these red numbers, I'm sorry you can't see it on the screen, but those do represent the increased construction cost. There's also was an increase from Burlington Northern for the crossing and signal and work improvements there too. So that's a little bit out of our control as well. It won't be any cheaper in the future either. So with that, the recommendation from the design engineer and from staff is to award the low bid to McEnany Construction in that amount, and also authorize a $100,000 contingency from the CIP.
Mike, can you remind us of what our KDOT grant was for this and the SMAC grant?
Yep. So the KDOT grant was $500,000, and then we got $150,000 from the Johnson County Stormwater Management Program. That $150,000 goes toward the culvert replacement. The line item in here, if you look through, is close to $600,000. That was a big. We thought that would be half that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So $650,000 total outside funding for this.
Yeah, because the idea was the grant would pay for half of the cost of the replacement.
Yeah. Which we thought would be about $300,000.
Is there any chance that we can ask?
There's a 100% chance we can ask.
Yeah, we would receive any additional.
We will ask. We will run that through.
All right.
We will ask. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Questions from council? I guess I would concur with your observations that not likely to, rebidding the project is very unlikely to result in better pricing. I haven't seen that in anything rebid in the last several years. The competitive grouping of the bids does say that it's an honest reflection or true reflection of the cost of the project. So,
And that company's pretty well known to work with railroads.
Yeah, yeah, that, and they've got quite, we've got a history with them too. Yeah, they've done quite a bit of work for the city over the years.
This is an example of a project that we've been working on for a long time. We have known it's on our CIP. We know we're going to do it. It needs to be done. But it's also one of the first biggest project of this size that we've done since the times have changed due to COVID or whatever it is, where everything has gone up in cost. And things like salaries are not going to go back down. You know, everything that's going up is going to stay up, other than, you know, there may be some materials that are short that maybe will go back down. But, you know, in general, prices rise and they don't go back down. So really no reason to put it off thinking it would be a whole lot different anytime in the future. Because I just don't see how, you know, it's not going to happen that way. So.
And the pipe can't afford to wait. I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
at the end of its, past the
Yeah.
end of its life, so.
Yeah.
Ready to make
Well, I
a
will
motion?
make a motion to accept the low bid from McEnany Construction for the Ottawa Street project in the amount of $1,987,654.32. To authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract agreement and to authorize a $100,000 contingency allocation from the capital improvement fund.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Hatamaker.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right. Item D, consider one-time employee inflation bonus and wage scale adjustment. Mike?
Yes, council, this is something that we've been concerned with internally for really since the first of the year. We have had a couple of positions in the street department open for more than 6 months, and the starting wages that we're able to offer and with the current pay structure just haven't been generating any applications at all. The ones that we do get are won't show up to interviews and just completely unqualified. Never get anybody with the CDL at the wages that we're starting people at. So we noticed, you know, before the first of the year really that it was becoming more difficult to recruit people. And then throughout this spring, we've lost 2 people now in that department to the private sector, just for more money. We're not alone in that. There are several other cities throughout the county who struggle with employee retention and recruitment. It's really bad in police, but it's also bad in all the public works sectors, specifically anybody with any skills at all. So at the same time, for the 2022 budget, when we were formulating the 22 budget last summer, inflation was still down around under 2%. So we had in our merit and cost of living increase, we had a 1.8% cost of living increase in the budget. So that we've been implementing that throughout the year as people's anniversaries come up. That's the cost of living increase that's given. Well, as I mentioned before, the current consumer price index for the Midwest region, 12-month is somewhere around 8.6%. So the buying power of employees' wages, especially at the lower end of the pay scale, has been reduced, essentially effectively reduced by 8%, which I think is driving people to look elsewhere. We're seeing that with other cities too. We know the labor market's been just tight at all levels. I mean, starting, at all skill levels, executive level, all the way down the pay scale. So all these things are happening to us at a time when we need to be forward-thinking and aggressive about our human resource position in terms of what the coming needs are to react and to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us, and to mitigate any negative impacts that might occur because of Panasonic. There's going to be demands on staff that we need to be able to be comfortable in our position with our pay scale, so we're not losing people. It's it's crucial for us right now that we're able to maintain the good people we have now. We're able to recruit people because we know we're going to be adding staff over the next 2 or 3 years specifically. So these things, it's kind of it's a perfect storm, if you will. We know that the construction activities at Panasonic are going to bring contractors in, thousands of them, that are also going to need laborers and going to need people with construction experience and going to need just people at all levels. And so there will be opportunities more than they've ever been for our own employees to directly, have those interactions. And so I think it's important that we guard against that. So what I'm recommending is 2 things. The first thing is a one-time inflation bonus that's equal to 4.6%. So I talked about the cost of living increase at 1.8. We added 2.2% to that as a merit pool for a total of 4. The reason for the 4.6% is because, with the current CPI at 8.6 and you subtract the 4% total increase, the 4.6 is really what's needed to just keep up with inflation for employees. So that'd be a one-time bonus, just paid out essentially now to all employees. That's 4.6% of their annual salary. The other thing I'm recommending is an increase that's focused at the very low end of the pay scale, that starts at a rate that gets our lowest paid employee up to almost $20 an hour. What that'll allow us to do is advertise for these new starting positions at rates that between $18 and $20 an hour. We can't offer a new employee a position higher than we have someone who's already working here that's been here for several years. So it's a lineal increase. It starts at 30% for the lowest worker and it ends at 0% for the highest paid workers. So it's increased in that manner. So the financial impacts of that are shown on the three funds. The inflation bonus is shown for the general, water, and sewer, and then the overall at $97,000. The salary difference shown here at almost $250,000 annually. Before we do that, we wanted to be very clear that the fiscal health, these projections that I just showed on the budget presentation at the end of 5 years, that we are going to be fiscally responsible in doing this. And so Exhibit A to the staff report there shows that we are very comfortable that it's doable, it's fiscally responsible over time, with just a few assumptions that are slightly less conservative than the ones we typically use for our budget projections. Most notably, increase in franchise revenues. If we assume that we're going to start getting the franchise revenues from Panasonic that Evergy has forecasted for 2023, you plug that into the 5-year projections and you plug another just a moderate minimal increase in those in 2026. Then you include the one-time bonus and wage adjustments, you still wind up with this chart. And this is the 5-year projection, and you can see it clearly remains above 30%. Similarly, for the water and the sewer, the base user growth in the water and the sewer, you make a slightly less conservative assumption for the water and the sewer funds, and you come up with a similar result. You're still maintaining this year-end fund balance above 30%. I do want to say that user base growth and these franchise revenue additions are orders of magnitude below the actual projections that we do expect Panasonic to bring in. Again, and it's only shown in 2023 and 2026. So we got 3 more years before the 2026 thing would kick in. So it's still clearly overly cautious in terms of the long-term projections with franchise revenues. So with that, I'll stop, answer any questions you might have. I do have a suggested motion that would allow me to implement the 2 steps that I've outlined in the staff memo.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Questions for Mike? Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, not so much a question, maybe just some comments and observations. I got, in terms of timeliness, I got invited to a workforce roundtable. Yeah, it was just yesterday morning with some Johnson County area legislators and a bunch of business people, hosted by the Overland Park Chamber, and it was really talking about this very thing, just the workforce pressure that everybody's experiencing. And it was from Black and Beach was there, the CEO of Advent Health, somebody who runs a financial advisory service, down to a bar and grill owner, a restaurant owner, a person who owns a franchise of haircut stylists, haircut facilities, just a wide range of businesses. A guy who represents the Home Builders Association, and it's just everybody from big company, from hospital trying to retain nurses to a restaurant trying to get wait staff, is fighting just almost essentially complete unemployment, no unemployment. It's a battle for staff in a very good economy that we've got going on here. So what you're facing is no different than what I heard people commiserate about, with no solution other than how do we deal with it. And how you deal with it is retention. You've got to retain your employees, because if you got to go hire somebody else, you cannot backfill them at the pay rate that you currently have. And that's what you're experiencing here. And I'll, so when I talk to peers in the industry and the business I run, I see that you've incorporated the bonus situation. That's what people are talking about, is semi-annual bonuses or something like that, to try to hedge what you just are doing here. And that is, rather than making it all up in wage increases that you can't take back, wage increase plus bonus, because you can do a bonus next year. You don't have to do a bonus next year if wages start to stabilize. So I like your mixed approach, because if you don't increase wages, you're going to lose people, and you're never going to backfill them with the wages you got. CDL, I see you made the comment in there. You're going to only have two CDL drivers left going into winter, and right now that with construction activity going on, a CDL driver can go out and get $30 an hour right now, pretty darn easily. So I appreciate the bind that you're in. So I like the approach. I feel for your situation. And actually, in the roundtable that I was in, I not only spoke for my business part, but I was the only one there, other than the legislators, who represented a municipality. And I said, well, interestingly enough, let me bring up a staff report that we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. So it's also felt at the city level. So in terms of question, do have a question for you, Mike. What are you hearing in terms of how other city administrators, among your peer group of city administrators, I assume you're hearing the same kind of thing, and I assume you're hearing a similar kind of solution.
Yeah. With the bonuses specifically, the ones that have police forces are really the ones that are hitting the panic button. It's tough to recruit police. But there have been half a dozen cities, starting with Prairie Village, I think, in January, and others have done very similar things here. And it is concentrated toward the low end of the pay scale as well. The recruitment specifically. Yeah, similar stories all around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Lori, anything? Rob, anything from you online? Thank you. Kevin?
I too support the theory here. It may be tough to get them at that lower rate to come in. Did any of those talks that you might have been at, Kevin or Mike, did anybody compare these to the past Mark studies that were done for like cities and things like that? How that?
Yeah, so a lot of cities have done recently, and a lot of cities are in the process of doing a salary survey wage rate study. And the Mid-America Regional Council has developed a tool to help that you can buy access to, and we have, and Brandon did a lot of that work. That you can kind of compare. It's tough unless you really, with an organization like us, our job descriptions kind of float between categories a lot of times. So it's a little bit hard to get apples to apples, but we did quite a bit of that. Looked at that wage survey and compared our ranges to where others are currently. It was not a formal analysis, which we did in like 2016, 2017. But yeah, this our brackets are still pretty much in line. Well, yeah, we're definitely under the average. But it's also important to note that that's just a public entity. That's cities and counties. We're competing with private. We're competing also with private industry, private sector too.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Danny, anything you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I pulled up 8 cities, 2 with their own police departments, Gardner and Eudora, and the population sizes and everything. And Mike's right about some of the entities were the same, like administrators, but then some others were competing on different jobs and floating, and so some of those places, like Brandon found out too, that it was not exactly the same. But I concur, and what I came up with after 8 cities, that we were right there, and it's a good thing. And we were right, and they are going to 3 of them I talked to were going to the bonus also. So I'm in concurrence with this. I think it's great. I think our staff did a good job on it.
Thank you, Danny. All right. Unless there's any other discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We authorize the city administrator to implement a one-time inflationary bonus to all city employees in the amount of 4.6% of annual salary, and to implement a wage scale adjustment as outlined in the staff memo dated September 1st, 2022.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Murdock.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
That's going to mean a lot to the staff that show support. Thank you.
All right. Our next item is an executive session to discuss personnel. Does someone have a suggested motion for that?
I texted you, I think all of you, if you check your phones, the suggested motion.
Oh, that's what that thing was.
That's what the dinging was.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, if we could include an invitation to Mr. Chet Belcher to join us in executive session.
All right.
That works.
Would someone like to
Did you
read
say
it?
15 minutes?
15 minutes.
Should do it, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recess into executive session at 8:03 for 15 minutes to discuss applicant for employment pursuant to statutory basis non-elected personnel, KSA 754319B1, with the open meeting resuming at the city council members, at the city council meeting chambers at 8:18. And I'd like to invite the applicant to join us.
Okay, we have a motion, a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, Rob, I didn't give enough time. We are in executive session, returning at
This conference
8:18.
is no longer being recorded.
So does one of us, do we need to take one of our iPads back?
I will. I think maybe I'll call Rob. Put
Okay.
his phone on speaker. If that works for everybody.
Carry my iPad. Well,
Yeah.
no, you need yours. That's the you need to call.
I'll call. Yeah.
Clear the room.
Yeah.